What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I'm your host, JT. Thursday night football is in the books. The 49ers come out on top with a much-needed win over the Seahawks. 36-24 was the final score. It's crazy how the tables turn, isn't it? Because when the Seahawks went beating up on some of the worst teams on their schedule, the Patriots and the Dolphins, they were looking like the second biggest sleeper team in the league. But then as soon as competition ramps up and they got to play the Detroit Lions, San Fran, they come crashing back down to earth in the worst way possible. Geno Smith definitely is the problem. I'm no longer going to defend this man anymore. For all you Seahawks fans who've been screaming this dude is mid, he's holding this team back, I throw my hands up. You're right. And how about how awful Seattle's defense is? Mike McDonald, the reason why I was so excited about this hiring was because people were gassing this dude up to be the Sean McVay of defense, but this defense is just as bad as how it's been since the Legion of Boom disassembled a decade ago. It seems like Seattle just forever is cursed with bad defense. We're going to break down what went wrong for the Seahawks in this game and why the 49ers got a very big win. Before we dive into it, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications so you don't miss when we drop new content. Let's get into it. So the 49ers topped the Seahawks on Thursday Night Football 36-24. They now are at 500 at 3-3 to get their first win in the division. And for Seattle, you go from looking like one of the most underrated teams in the league to the biggest frauds in the league within the span of only 3 weeks. It's funny how differently this team looks when they're going up against good teams, man. And I'm really disappointed in how Mike McDonald's defense has played these last 3 games. When Mike McDonald was first hired by the Seahawks, he was hyped up to be the Sean McVay, the boy wonder of defense. But this defense has got absolutely toasted in these last couple of weeks, man. You gave up 29 against Danny Pennies and the New York Giants. The Detroit Lions dropped 42 on you, and you allowed the 49ers to get 36. And this defense tonight, yeah, like they had their moments when they were able to step up and help this team get back into the ball game. But as a defensive-minded coach, you want your defense on the field with all 3 timeouts, with the opportunity to get the ball back to your offense. And instead, you allow this random running back that the 49ers always seem to find. They bust a 73-yard run, gets them into the red zone, and at that point, the game pretty much is all but over. And Geno Smith, he didn't play well in this game. Regardless of what the stats say, he threw an interception earlier in this game that didn't really make any sense. And then when it looked like the Seahawks were about to come back and the 49ers were about to blow another lead in the fourth quarter, he ends up throwing an interception, which pretty much ices the game for the 49ers in a sense. Although Seattle, after that interception, was able to drive downfield, score a touchdown, and they still had a chance to win it if their defense could have got a stop. But, Geno Smith, he's not a bad quarterback, but he's not a good quarterback neither. He's like the top 18 quarterback in the league, and you definitely have to draft a quarterback in next year's draft. Imagine if the Seattle Seahawks had Shedeur Sanders right now with the kind of weaponry he'll have to throw to DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, JSN. You got Kenneth Walker in the backfield. Shedeur Sanders would make the Seahawks not only just a playoff team, but a dark horse Super Bowl contender. When next year's draft rolls around, the Seahawks need to do whatever it takes to put themselves in position to land Shedeur Sanders. They are a quarterback and a good defense away from getting back into the Super Bowl conversation. But until they're able to address these 2 lingering issues, this team is going to continue to disappoint year after year. For crying out loud, the Seahawks haven't had a good defense since I was in 7th grade. That was a decade ago since the Legion of Boom was on the field, man. And you can't use injuries as an excuse anymore because, I mean, you're getting healthy on the defense side of football. I don't know what the hell is going on with Mike McDonald's defense, but giving up 228 rushing yards, 6.9 yards per carry is really disappointing. Defensive coaches are already somewhat going out of style. And with Mike McDonald coming into this division, you got to go up against Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, two of the best play callers that the NFL has seen in the past decade, not named Andy Reid. You know, you expect more out of the defense when you have a guy like Mike McDonald who had so much respect, so much high praise coming into this season. The defense has to step it up. And even against, you know, the Dolphins and the Patriots, the defense still had the moments where they didn't look that good. And Geno Smith, he's not part of the solution. You know, he's part of the problem as well. He's not part of the entire reason why the Seahawks have lost 3 straight games. You can't put all of the Seahawks struggles on him because he does have his moments when he is able to play some decent football. But that's the problem with Geno Smith. He doesn't play good football consistently enough to be your long-term answer at quarterback. You know, you got to find a replacement for this dude, man. And moving forward, I think that there are a lot of tough conversations that need to be had about Mike McDonald as the head coach of this team, because right now it looks like this dude is kind of in over his head. You specialize on the defensive side of the ball. The worst part of your team should not be the area that you're supposed to be an expertise at, man. What happened to the defense that you had at Baltimore? You got just as much talent in Seattle as you did in Baltimore last year. So why is the defense so god-awful? Come on, Mike McDonald. We need some answers, because the reason why you were hired was to fix this defense, because Pete Carroll's defense was out of touch. If the defense was still going to be this bad, Seattle might as well have kept Pete Carroll, because you didn't upgrade that head coach. You pretty much stayed the same. You're winning games the same way that you did last year. And can we please get some more Kenneth Walker? Kenneth Walker should be getting 20 touches a game. At this point, if Geno's going to play the way that he did tonight, just put Kenneth Walker back there at Wildcat quarterback and let him run this offense, because good things happen when Kenneth Walker gets the ball in his hands. You can't say the offensive line didn't protect Geno Smith. He only got sacked 1 time tonight. This is one of the better performances that this offensive line has had this year. Yeah, Nick Bosa was wrecking havoc on a couple of plays here and there, but Geno Smith had plenty of clean pockets tonight, man. Let's stop these excuses for this mediocre quarterback play. I love Geno Smith. The dude was a great comeback story a few years ago, but like Dan Lanning said last year before Oregon beat the hell out of Colorado, the Cinderella story is over. Geno Smith has been riding back for 2 straight years now, man. He's the problem. It's time to move on, find a better upgrade. I'm not saying that you need to bench Geno Smith, but the Seattle Seahawks front office better be scouting these quarterbacks in next year's draft class really heavy, man, because they gotta find a QB of the future. You cannot continue to allow this kind of quarterback play to hold you back. And I just can't blame it all on Geno Smith. The defense, they didn't look that better neither, man. For the 49ers, I'm not going to lie, when Seattle started to come back in this game and they made it 23-17, I texted one of my homies who said that Kyle Shanahan's overrated, and I told him, you know what, pal? You just might be right about Kyle, because I thought that this was about to be the 3rd game this season that the 49ers blew another lead in the 4th quarter late in the ball game. But instead, Geno Smith bails out Kyle Shanahan. He gets the ball back to the 49ers. They go ahead. They turn it into a touchdown. And at that point, the game was pretty much all but over. This was a huge win for San Francisco, because they were 0-2 in this division prior to this win. And now at 3-3, you put yourself right back at the top to win this division once again. And you're the clear best team in this division right now. Seattle is falling off. The Rams are beat up with injuries. And the Arizona Cardinals are all offense, no defense. The 49ers, I wasn't panicking on them, although they had a couple of really disturbing losses, like how you lost to Arizona last week really kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But you can't judge teams based off one game. You still have to look at the bigger picture. And what the bigger picture for San Francisco is that you more are capable of being able to win the NFC. You definitely should be in the Final Four when this season concludes and we get into playoff time, because the NFC is wide open right now. There's not really a clear-cut definitive team in this conference right now that you can say, oh yeah, they're a lock to win it, they're a lock to make it to the Super Bowl. Right now it's a log jam. You got the 49ers, the Packers, the Vikings, the Lions, and everybody else. This team is dealing with a lot of injuries. Deebo Samuel got roughed up during this game. Jordan Mason ended up getting injured with the shoulder injury. But the fact that the 49ers have such a great play caller and Kyle Shanahan, that he makes any running back that he touches and puts into this system turn into gold, shows you that he's not as overrated as what people try to make him out to be. Just because the dude doesn't have a Super Bowl ring yet doesn't mean that he's a crappy head coach. Kyle Shanahan is one of the best head coaches in the league when it comes to getting the most out of his personnel. You saw that tonight. This Isaac Guerrero dude, I mean, he was absolutely killing Seattle tonight. It's like it never stops when it comes to the 49ers producing really good running backs due to how good Kyle Shanahan's system is. He just gets so much juice out of that position. Now, defensively, the 49ers still could be a lot better. You know, the Jets recently fired Robert Saleh. A lot of you 49ers fans have been praying for Robert Saleh to get fired so you can bring him back to San Fran. And I don't see why you wouldn't make the phone call to Robert Saleh, man. Obviously, the dude may still want to coach some football, may also want to get a ring, get a little bit of that bad taste out of his mouth for how things ended in New York. Why not go ahead, dial up Robert Saleh? He was the best defensive coordinator you had. I thought he was better than DeMeco Ryans, personally, and DeMeco Ryans was pretty damn good in his own right. But bring back Robert Saleh, get this defense right, and you definitely will be right back in the thick of things of winning the Super Bowl. Hell, Robert Saleh may be able to actually help you get over the hump and stop Patrick Mahomes if you have to face off against him again in the Super Bowl this year, if you make it. But for the 49ers to win this game, it was a massive victory for them, because if you would have lost this game, you would have been 2-4, and we would have been having a different conversation right now. Instead of hampering on Geno Smith and Mike McDonald, we would have been going ham on Kyle Shanahan, man, because you're 2-4 at this point of the year, losing to Seattle, a team that you normally tend to own. You know, that wouldn't have been a good convo to have about Shanny, but they were able to pull this one out. Geno Smith kind of bailed him out in the process, but how about Brock Purdy tonight? Brock Purdy threw 3 touchdowns for 255 passing yards. He didn't get sacked at all. He was really good, methodical, surgical, however you want to describe this performance. And I give up on defending Brock Purdy, not because I don't like him, but just because people are never going to change their opinion about this guy. With him being the last pick of the draft, everybody is always going to view him as a system quarterback. They're never going to give this dude the credit that he deserves. And it's really stupid because the NFL, how successful a player is heavily dependent upon the situation that he goes into. Everybody thinks that if you get drafted in the first round and you end up panning out and you're good, you're a future Hall of Famer. But if you end up being a late round pick and you have a great career, oh, you were carried by talent. You were carried by having a good coach. When you can't name a single quarterback in the Hall of Fame that's won a championship that's done it with the trash head coach. But you can name plenty of great coaches who have won with not great quarterback play. You know, like Brock Purdy, it really kind of irritates me how people are just so stubborn to admit that this dude is actually a good quarterback. He's a top 6 quarterback in my eyes. You can't name me more than 5 quarterbacks who is playing better football than Brock Purdy right now, man. I really love Brock Purdy's game. He's one of my favorite players to watch, and I love seeing people take advantage of their opportunity. I remember when Jimmy Garoppolo got injured a few years ago against Miami, this dude came out of nowhere and he was balling out, and I've been watching a lot of Brock Purdy, not just in the NFL, but when he was at Iowa State, for some strange reason, like back when I was watching Iowa State, when Purdy was at the helm at QB for the Cyclones, there were always a lot of Iowa State games popping up on my TV, and he was a baller. In the same way he played at Iowa State, he's been playing in the NFL. Gets the ball out fast, plays really good in rhythm. He's a rhythmatic passer. And you know, like, it just shows you how the NFL is just so unpredictable that you don't really know who could end up being the gem, who could end up being the steal, who could end up being a bust. All this stuff is just so random at the end of the day that it's really hard to scout quarterbacks. But Brock Purdy was one of the few quarterbacks that I actually got right, and I felt like he was a good fit in this Kyle Shanahan system, and I'm not really surprised at the level of success that he's having. And moving forward for San Francisco, this probably could be a win that catapults them into going into a 6-7 game win streak. Remember, they started out slow last year. They got a little bit beat up going into that bye week. Then they came off that bye. They beat the hell out of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they quickly became one of the NFL's hottest teams, rattling off a lot of consecutive wins. And that's how I feel the rest of the season is going to go for San Francisco. I expect them to pull themselves away from the rest of the NFC and start to solidify themselves as the top dog in this conference. And for Seattle, man, things look like they're about to get extremely ugly for you because you're getting more healthier on defense, but yet that side of the football is not improving. And Geno Smith, you know, he's just giving you middling quarterback play. That's not going to be good enough to help you overcome the limitations that you have on the defensive side of the football. This is it for this episode of the JT Sports Podcast. If you enjoy, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications. Remember that you can find this episode on all podcasting platforms: Apple, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast from. The JT Sports Podcast is available. Follow us on Instagram at JT Sports _, on X at JT Sports __. I appreciate you guys for tuning in, and I will see you guys shortly with another episode.